Week 1 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Brock Bowers of the Vegas Raiders. After a historic season last year, breaking all the records at the tight end position as a rookie. This week, a good matchup to kick off the season. And this offense improved. You brought in Pete Carroll as the head coach, Chip Kelly the offensive coordinator, Geno Smith at quarterback. So last season with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, we saw Bowers put up those insane numbers. So this week, decent matchup in New England. I know their defensive-minded team were very low as a head coach. The number 1 guy off the board at the tight end position. And last season, if he was a receiver, he would have been top 12 in points total at the receiving position. That's how good Brock Bowers is. Number 2, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. Last year, monster year, over 100 receptions for McBride, over 1,000 yards. The only down thing with him, only scored 2 touchdowns, was McBride, but he's still the number 1 option in this offense. Him and Harrison, the 2 top guys over there in Arizona. And this week, a great matchup, fast track indoors at New Orleans. I think Trey McBride's going to have his way. And these 2 tight ends, just safeties, linebackers, corners, doesn't matter who you put on them. These guys are like hybrid wide receivers with their size and athleticism. Number 3, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. So George Kittle, what a season it was once again last year. This season, I think he's going to be the number 1 option in the passing game with Brandon Ayuk out to October, most likely. Deebo Samuel, obviously he was traded away to the Commanders. Juwan Jennings, he's banged up. And Ricky Pearsall, I know it's his second year, but I don't think he's ready to be the number 1 option. So these top 3 tight ends, this was the order they were drafted in most fantasy leagues. And this week, it's a solid matchup at a Seattle Seahawks team that obviously track record against and sees them twice a year in the same division in the NFC West. Number 4, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So Hawkinson, I think this season he's going to be even better. Second year coming off the ACL. And now with the young quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. We know young quarterbacks, they rely on the security blankets in their tight end. And we know Hawkinson, he's got that major upside, yard after catch type of tight end. And this week it's a good matchup at Chicago, a team he's versed his whole career going back to his Lion days, and now with the Vikings over the last few seasons where he's had success. So I like Hawkinson this week. Number 5, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And David Njoku, it might obviously be a little surprising he's in the top 5 this week, but this week a great matchup versus Cincinnati Bengals. I've said this a lot about Njoku. He's a freak athlete and another guy who's like a hybrid tight end with athleticism and speed at his size. And at least now with Joe Flacco in there, quarterback, he's going to get him the football. We saw it a couple seasons ago when Flacco was with the Browns that David Njoku was putting up numbers. And this week in a game that could be trailing or it could be a high-scoring game back and forth, I think Njoku, he could go out there and have a good week. Number 6, Evan Ingram of the Denver Broncos. Evan Ingram, it was a nice offseason signing for this Denver Bronco team. Immediately, he'll be the number 2 option in the passing game, I believe, for this Denver Bronco team. I know they got Marvin Mims there. They drafted the rookie Pat Bryant, got Troy Franklin, but pretty much last season it was all about Cortland Sutton as the number 1 option in the passing game. And now you add a tight end like Ingram, who's another guy that's had some big seasons, including in 2023, over 100 catches with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this week with a good matchup versus Tennessee, and Bo Nix still a young quarterback who I think he's going to get Ingram in the mix. And a lot of good reports have come out of camp with Ingram this offseason and training camp. I like him this week. 7, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people think Kelce's washed. I know his numbers have dropped off a little bit, but I've said this in other videos with Kelce. Still 97 catches last season, and now with Rashee Rice suspended 6 games in the early going, it's going to be Worthy and Kelce operating as the top 2 options. And it also could be Kelce's last season in the league where he could go out with a big season. So this week in a matchup at the Chargers international game, obviously juices will be flowing. The opener wants to put on a show for that crowd. I think this week Kelce and Mahomes get on the same page, and he's a solid option. Number 8, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So Sam Laporta was a down year considering what he did his rookie season last year, but second half he picked it up again and got things going. Maybe he was banged up, whatever the case may be. Maybe defenses found something on tape where they saw Laporta that could stop him a little bit. But this offense, obviously, it's going to go around the passing game. Obviously, you got Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. But this week at Green Bay, on those crucial third downs, there's going to be points where Sam Laporta is going to be a big target. So this week, I still think he's a top 10 option in a tough matchup. And last season, taking a little bit of a backseat in the passing game. Number 9, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of people that were down on Andrews a little bit coming into the year. I know last season, the first 5-6 weeks, he couldn't get anything going was Mark Andrews. I think he wasn't 100% after a bad leg injury in 2023, but he still finished the season with 11 touchdowns, big red zone threat, crisp route runner at the tight end position, even though he's a veteran. And I still believe he's the number one option in this passing game as well. They're going with the same receiving room. Zay Flowers, they still have Rashad Bateman. I know they signed DeAndre Hopkins, but his better days are behind him, and he's just a veteran at this point. So I think Andrews still could go out there, and then a matchup in Buffalo where a lot of scoring could be a possibility in this one. I think Andrews has a decent performance. Number 10, Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts. So this co-passing game now, we'll see how it operates with Daniel Jones beating Anthony Richardson out at the quarterback position. We know they got Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, but Tyler Warren, you used the first-round pick, 14th overall, to bring Warren in, and he's been one of the better tight end prospects to come out in the last decade. So like I said, this offense hasn't had much the last couple seasons. Tight ends pretty much been a missing link of the offense in terms of the passing game for the Colts for many seasons. And it's better that Jones is starting than Richardson. I think Jones will get him the football, and Tyler Warren, yards after catch is where it could be a problem. And this week it's a good matchup versus a decimated defense that lost a lot of guys in training camp versus Miami. Number 11, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. So this week a good matchup versus Detroit. Kraft early on, I think he could be possibly the number one option in the passing game, even though I believe sooner than later Matthew Golden's going to emerge, and he could be a big-time receiver for this Packer team where they took him in the first round in the past draft. So this week, division matchup versus the Lions. This game could go grind-out type of game in the low 20s or high-scoring affair between these two teams where they hit in the 30s. But like I said, Tucker Kraft, he's got good hands. Jordan Love's still a young quarterback. He's going to rely on the tight end position at times. And Kraft this week's a solid option. Number 12, Colston Loveland of the Chicago Bears. It might take a little bit of time for Colston Loveland to get going, but another tight end just like Warren, one of the better tight end prospects to come out in the last 10 years. And he was taken 10th overall, so the Chicago Bear team, they weren't wasting time in the draft. Got another good option for this Ben Johnson offense. They're going to try to use him like Johnson did Laporta over there in Detroit, but it all obviously relies on Caleb Williams making the right reads and making the good throws. So this week in a matchup versus Minnesota, I think Loveland, he's going to see snaps, but Cole Kmet is going to get in there as well. But Loveland's got great upside and better upside, I believe, than a Goddard, Hunter Henry, and Ertz, where you know what you're going to get from those guys. 13, Dallas Goddard of the Philadelphia Eagles. So this week, a good matchup versus the Cowboys, one of the weakest linebacking rooms in all pro football. And this Eagle team, I think, is going to have their way. But the only thing, obviously, with this offense, Goddard's the fourth option behind Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. But Goddard, last season, he had some big games. Yard after catch, he's still solid. And he's had a good track record versus the Dallas Cowboys. And they're going to put points on the board a lot in this one. 14, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. So Hunter Henry, he's the number 2 option now in the passing game. Him and Drake May had good rapport last season when May came in. And Hunter Henry, he's been a solid vet throughout his career in the NFL, going back to his Los Angeles Charger days. So this week in a decent matchup versus the Vegas Raiders, he's a top 15 option, and the 15th and final tight end I have ranked this week, Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. So Zach Ertz, it was a great season last year with the rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. I know now in the passing game he'll be the third option behind McLaurin and the newly acquired Deebo Samuel in the offseason to this offense. With Jaden Daniels, he's that quarterback that spreads the football out, and him and Zach Ertz, they had great rapport, and we're on the same page all season long where he's a big target. And I know he's not the fastest guy, and he's in the latter part of his career, but his route running is crisp and his IQ. And this week in a matchup versus the Giants, a team he's had big games against his whole career, going back to his Philadelphia Eagle days. I like Ertz this week as the top 15 option. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for week 1 of the fantasy football season.